Hello everybody, and welcome to the 3-point lighting for digital cinematography live webinar. So today we'll be looking at these concepts in digital video. So my name is Tom Stranad. I am the lead digital artist of the Creator Space, and I want to welcome everyone and thanks for joining. Again, want to thank all of our partners involved. We have the Blue Mountains Public Library, the Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library, along with the Canada Council for the Arts. So let's begin this, this journey. So here we go. So 3-point lighting for digital cinematography. What does this mean? Basically, we'll be looking at the lighting techniques for digital video. So here's an overview. So we will start with lighting for video, type of lights, and then we'll look at color temperature, 3-point lighting, what is this? And then we'll do a demo. So we'll look at adjusting the lights and exposure comparisons, because that's important as we look at lighting as well. So, and then following that, we'll have a brief Q&A. So we're looking about 40 minutes, and we'll have about 5 minutes for a Q&A. So lighting for video. So in digital video, the nice thing about this is we're pretty familiar with it. A lot of, like when it comes down to like iPhones and video cameras, what we see is what we get. So the digital monitor essentially lets us see what our image is. And that's really important because that way there's no delay with getting the film developed. So what we see is what we get instantly, right? So that's a really cool thing. And then also you can use any type of light, but really the key is to use lights that don't flicker, that do not cause a flicker. And we'll talk about what that means. And what happens is some lights aren't designed for video, and these will essentially end up flickering. So it could, different types of lights, and it comes down to like the frequency and electrical pulses and things. So some might flicker. So we want to avoid things. We want to have things that are like continuous lighting that won't flicker. Okay, so in video, a key thing about video is that the video is always recording. So it's key that it requires continuous lights or lights that are always on, right? So that's a real key part of it, right? So that's the lighting for video. Continuous lighting. So we're not talking about just a flash or a strobe like could be in photography. We need lights that are always on. So we basically light and shape our light for what's always going to be on. So let's look at types of artificial lights for video. So there's 4 main types of lights that we can use for video. So number 1, we have tungsten. Number 2, we have, so tungsten, I should say, it's based on a classic light bulb. So that's when I call it a tungsten light, it's looking at a classic type of light bulb, tungsten light bulbs. HMI, and that utilizes it's a unique bulb to create a strong amount of daylight. So those are really strong, punchy lights, they're called HMI. And that's a bit of a newer type. So it's similar to like halogen light bulbs. It has a metal particle and it's a little bit more of a complicated light bulb than tungsten. Fluorescent, we're all pretty familiar with that. A lot of our homes have that. Offices have fluorescent lighting. So that could, it essentially uses gases in a tube to create the light, right? So that's the really, really cool part there. And then the LED, that uses diodes to create light. That's the 4th type, so LED. We see more and more of that, LED light bulbs, and a lot of our lights that I'll be demoing with today are LED light bulb based, and we actually have a fluorescent light too. So it's going to be cool. We'll look at a few different types. Now the LED lights, they're pretty cost effective. You can essentially buy a light bulb, in a home hardware store or any hardware store, and it could be $4 or $5. They don't flicker, but we'll talk about a little bit of some aspects to look at. So here's the flicker point. So flicker is possible with some lights. So tungsten lights are good old standard classic light bulb. Generally doesn't have any kind of a flicker issue, right? So, and that's great because the tungsten can just be used. It can be plugged in. And we're talking about general like light bulbs and a light bulb base, that kind of a tungsten bulb, no flicker. which is great. So that's kind of a standard go-to that can be used. Fluorescent and HMI lights, they require ballast. So a fluorescent light fixture actually has a bit of a ballast in it. So, again, kitchen lights, or if you think of an aquarium light, there's ballast in it. The HMI light, there's usually a really big ballast. And that, again, to make sure it doesn't flicker so that it's synchronized with your frame rates. That's one of the issues too, is can it synchronize with your frame rates? Will you notice it? So then LED lights, they need to be designed to dim. So if you just get a standard LED, it might not be dimmable. And if it's not dimmable, it can flicker. But on its own, at full, it won't flicker. So that's one of those things where the LED light, again, won't flicker if it's on. But if you try to dim it, it could flicker if it's not designed to be dimmable. So that's one of those things to think about. Some LED lights that you buy for video are just kind of an on and off, and they don't have any dimming. And dimming, as we'll look at the demo today, can be really important. So that's something to think about. Okay, so color temperature. This is something that is a great thing to explore, because what does it mean, color temperature? And color temperature of light is measured in Kelvin units and in like degrees Kelvin, or they'll just be called Kelvin. So tungsten light bulbs and candles are 3200 degrees Kelvin, so they're warmer. You can see on this chart in the bottom, it goes towards the left, the warm side, so 1000 being essentially like a red. And then daylight and the sun is all the way at 5600 degrees Kelvin, cooler, right? So if it's cooler, 5600 degrees, that's like a daylight temperature, and that could be more like the sun. So even though the sun, we think of it as being warm, it's actually a very cool light. Sunlight is 5600, and tungsten light bulbs, fire, candles, that's on the warmer side, so it's a lower number. And these things, if we just think of them, they don't have to get too complicated, but a lot of times if you're looking at LED light bulbs, they'll actually say warm white, and they'll be like 2700 degrees. So that's more of like a tungsten light. And then there's a daylight one that will say, 4400 or 5200 or 5600. That's going to be a cooler light. So you just want to think about that when you're deciding what kind of lights to get. The other thing to remember is that the video camera itself can be adjusted for color temperature as well. So I have everything set up today that we'll be demoing on the daylight mode. And then we'll look at some of the lights that we can change to tungsten so we can make them a bit warmer. But the video cameras are all set at daylight mode, just for that reference point so we know. Okay, and we'll have some more webinars and lectures on color temperature, because there's a lot of really interesting things that can be done with that as well. So definitely, if anyone has any questions on that, keep those, and we'll discuss a little bit more at the end. Okay, so 3-point lighting. This is our main point of discussion, but just a little bit of that precursor on the types of lights, because people always ask, okay, what's a good light to get? So again, keep any kind of questions you guys have about types of lights, do let me know, and we can talk about that in the Q&A. So again, think of those things. The LEDs pretty much doesn't flicker, tungsten doesn't flicker. Fluorescent lights, they have to be specially purchased for video use, otherwise they'll flicker if you just get a regular fluorescent bulb unit from a hardware store. And then the HMI, those special lights, do need a ballast or the flicker, right? So just to kind of recap that. Then we want to think about the types of bulbs that you get. Again, if you're just getting them, you can get them as easily from a hardware store, using fixtures that you have, like desk lamps and things. Have like a desk lamp over here that can be like used with a regular LED, right? So those are things to think about. So now that we got that idea, we have some lights, right? So in order to kind of make use of what we learned today, we're going to want to apply using some lights to create 3-point lighting, right? So this consists of 3 lights, and to light a subject, essentially. So we have a key light, which is our main light, our most powerful light. We have a fill light, which becomes our secondary light, or the one that will be less powerful than the key light. And the backlight, which is really just a separation light to separate the subjects from the background, which can happen. And so that's kind of the idea. So we're contouring light. And you know, if you think about, if you're looking at something, if someone's standing in front of, let's say, a black curtain, and they'll just kind of blend into that background. And we'll look at what that can do with the little subjects that I've set up here, a couple of toys to model with. And that separation literally separates it. So that backlight is really key. It's not mandatory, but it just helps to give more depth. So that's what we're trying to do. 3-point lighting is kind of the basic key type of lighting for video. And once you know this, you can apply it differently. So you can use one key light, you can use a key and a fill, you can use a key and a backlight, right? So you can kind of mold your lighting differently. So what does this mean? This is the diagram. So 3-point lighting. So as you can see here, we have a key light at 100%, a fill light that's about 50%. And the camera, this is one of the key things here too, is we're basically doing these about 45 degrees from the camera. So you see the camera in the bottom center of this diagram. And then the key and fill light are about 45 degrees separated off of the, from the camera angle, right? So that kind of gives us the side lighting. Front lighting can be okay, but the more we can do the side lighting, again, helps us a little bit more of a contour. Because generally not a lot of us naturally have a big bright light shining on us from the front. It's usually from the side, bounced off of walls and things like this. Then the backlight, you can see, is kind of just behind the subject, and that's the separation that will separate the subject. It's often sometimes referred to as a rim light or hair light, and the fill light can also be referred to as an eye light. And that can just help to, kind of fill in the eye light a little bit. So that's the diagram of sorts. So that's kind of our breakdown of what we're going to do today, this 3-point lighting concept. Okay, so again, key, fill, backlight. This is our diagram, and what we can do now is let's put this into action. So let's explore what this means. So what I'm going to show is I have a real big, wide, like fisheye angle of the studio space here, just a really basic lighting setup. And what I got to do first is I'm just going to turn off one of my lights here that was just used for while I was talking, because that's going to play a little bit of a part. So I want to just turn that off. And what I'm going to do is, let's get right into some of these cameras here. So here is our subjects lit up in essentially a 3-point lighting type scenario. So, it looks nice, and you can see there's a little bit of light. And I chose the black little penguin figure. You can see how around the edges of his head, there's a bit of light, and that's what that backlight's doing. And we'll look at what this means. So let me show you the big why. We can kind of see now there's 3 lights. So we have this light here. This is our key light. We have this light over here is our fill light. And then the back light way up over there, you can see that's the backlight, right? So it's just like the diagram. And it's a bit of a squished, this is just my editing space here. So a little bit of a, scaled down version of the diagram, but the principles apply are the same. So we have our key, fill, and the backlight, right? So now let's look back at the image here again that we have. Oops, so right here. So now if we look at this image here, this is the full setup. Okay, so now what we'll do is we're gonna break it down and just have the key first, right? So what I'm gonna do is actually turn off these other lights. So let me do that. Gonna spin these down to 0. It's a dimmable. So now we just have the key light here. Okay, and I'm gonna turn off this backlight. Okay, so now we have just the key light. And that's really how I always, I recommend starting in that kind of lighting fashion. So just having that. So here's our key. Right, so you can see and I wanted to use 2 subjects because it's not so hard to just work with one, but look at how, what the goat does to the penguin. It starts to cover it a little bit, right? So this is our key. So once we kind of figure out the brightness of the key, that's the first kind of, you know, element to do, right? So if I go like this, so now I can adjust this. See, so I can make it brighter. So this is at 100%. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So that's 100%. So you can see it's pretty bright, but here's a good example of the penguin kind of represents the other side of a person's face, right? So if the penguin doesn't have any light, he gets kind of thrown into the shadow. This is really a good example of how the fill light can really help bring that up, right? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to bring in a little bit of the fill light. So I'm just going to dim it up. Okay, so I'm going to put it at about 50%. Okay, and now we can see how it's bringing a little bit more light to here and helping fill in what this goat was creating a shadow of. Right, so here let's go to the camera angle now, right? And look at how much nicer that is. Now we got that fill on the penguin, right? And again, he's being covered a little bit, so we can play with, you know, positioning. If we bring him forward a little bit, that's going to help, you know, in that kind of example. But I did want to start off to just show what it looks like when it's really like dark, right? So this is a key and a fill. So we're at 2 points, right? So we got our key, fill, right? And then right now, look at the penguin's head. It's basically looks like it's part of the background, right? So that background is just kind of, you know, blending together, and it's hard to really have any separation between the two, right? So what I'll do now is let's actually put the I'm going to put the big backlight on. Okay, so I'll just go over here. I'm going to turn this on. Okay, so I'm going to turn that on. And now what it's doing is putting light on the back here over our subjects. So that's the backlight. Okay, so now let me switch over to, so now you can see how we've separated the goat's head has a bit of a glow, but that penguin really gets separated. You can see the penguin shape in front of the black background, right? And the black background's a little bit of a ruffled, like big reflector I have, so it's good. There's a little bit of contour so we see. But imagine if it was totally flat. It would be really hard to see against it. But that nice glow around the penguin is really the key of our 3-point lighting, right? So we have the point 1, point 2, point 3. So now let's go the other way. So what we'll do is we're going to turn off the key light. Okay, so I'm going to turn off this key light right here and leave the backlight and the fill light. We'll just get an idea of how these different combinations work. So this is going to go turn it off. Okay, so now it's off. So here we go. Now it looks like that. So you can see it's a lot moodier, right? So I haven't changed the exposure, but you know, in doing so, I've been able to create a bit of a moodier look, right? So that's looking pretty good. So a bit of the moodier look is a nice thing. And that, you know, helps because then the backlight, you know, is still giving that rim light. There's a bit of the fill light on the sides, and it, you know, it looks pretty neat that way, right? So that's kind of a good way to go with it, right? So there we go. So that's that first element of going, you know, backlight and just a bit of fill light. So that's looking pretty nice. Now, the next thing we want to look at is what happens with just the backlight, right? So let's turn that off now. So I'm going to turn off the fill light, which is this one right over here. And turn that right off. Okay, so that's that. And now, let's see what that looks like. See, so now we just got that backlight only, and you know, we're just seeing that kind of rim around the figures, and we don't have any real frontal light, but you can see it really glows behind, and it's a pretty strong light that I'm using for the backlight, but that's not bad. Like that's looking pretty nice too. So again, that's just the kind of backlight situation. So again, a lot more moodier because we're getting less light on the front of our subjects, but it still gives us a bit of light too. So this is the whole beauty of with the 3-point lighting, we have a bunch of combinations that we can do. So we can do like backlight only, right? And now let's just for fun, let's do backlight and the key light. So there's backlight and key light. That's not bad. That's looking pretty nice too. So because it's the backlight and key light only, we're not getting a little bit of the fill on the penguin on the screen right, or his left side, I guess, of his face. So it's not hurting it though, and it's pretty neat. So this is the combination of the two. So really what's important here is with the 3-point lighting is we're able to kind of do different combinations once we have the 3 set up. And that's the really cool thing, is that you don't necessarily even have to end up using all 3. We can just determine that we want to use a key and a backlight just to do that background separation and a little bit of the main front side lighting, I should say. Right, so that's really cool. So again, we have this light's totally off. We just have the key and the background. So that looks pretty neat, right? So that gives us a nice looking image as well, right? So that kind of takes us through what the 3-point lighting can be. So let's do another combination and just have fill only. Okay, and we'll do that kind of combo. So we'll just turn that one off. So I'm going to turn the other ones off. I'll leave you on this angle so you can see. So I'm going to put the fill to 100%. Okay, and I'm just going to turn this light off, the key light. Okay, so we just have just the fill. And I'm going to turn off the backlight as well. Okay, so now we have this kind of a mood, right? So it's a lot moodier. So that single light and the fill light, that's the least strongest light out of all 3 that we're using, creates this kind of a very interesting mood. But again, now the penguin totally disappears. It's hard to see the outline. And again, with a subject like the goat that has the fuzzy fur, a lot of bouncing light is happening in the fur, the separation isn't too bad. You can still get an idea that the goat's in front of something. But the penguin really starts to blend together into that background and foreground, right? So that could really be an issue, right? So that's kind of an interesting aspect. So that's only the fill, right? So now let's bring in the key light. So I'm going to pop. So what it is now we're going to turn this light on. So I only have that fill, right? You can see what it looks like in this ultra wide. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this one on. Let me just get the battery on here. There we go. So now that's on. Look how right away that pops. What I'm going to do is just dim it down and just put it up to like 10%. Look at that. So from totally off, I'm going to start to increase a little bit. And this is the great thing about the dimmable light. We can see by raising it all the way to 100%, it gets really bright. But I can go down to almost off. It's just on. And that key now becomes the fill light, right? So the roles have been reversed, because now what's happening is this fill light is the strongest, and this one is 20% of what that one is. So now just a little bit of a fill, right? So the roles can be reversed, but the positioning is still there to help us, right? And then again, we have our backlight, and you can see how crucial it really is for that penguin to separate. So again, that could be, if you're doing product shots, based wardrobe, time of day and stuff. So, people that have black clothing on, or if it's dark products, something that's like a black plastic or something, really hard to differentiate it if there's a black background too. So that's where that backlight really helps. So let's look at this now, where we have essentially the reversed key and fill, and then we're going to put our let's put our backlight on. Okay, so I'm just going to go and let's put that one on now. I'm just going to go over here and get that light on. So here we go. Okay. And I'm just going to close down these barn doors a bit to kind of reduce how much light is happening. There we go. And let's have a look at what that looks like in our close-up shot. So there we go. So again, now we have that nice backlight around the penguin. And it does add a lot of light, the backlight, so we can always work at moving it further away from the camera if we want to reduce kind of the overall brightness. So here's where we flipped it. So now we have more brightness on the right side of the image because our fill light is the key light, right? So this is the brightest light now on the front here. I usually tend, and I like to recommend that, is you can have the backlight can essentially be your strongest because it really needs to usually go from a far distance as we have here, and it needs to do that kind of glow around the character, right? And then we have this light over here, right, which we've now reversed and we've dimmed it down, so this becomes our fill light, just a little bit of light. That's the key light, right? And they're our big strong backlight to get that rim separation of the backlight from the background. So that's a really interesting thing. So now we have a little bit more time here. So let's look at the concept of color temperatures as well, right? So that's the cool thing now, is that a lot of the LEDs, you no longer have to just change, you no longer have to just do like light bulb changes and stuff, but you can actually look at having, changing the color temperature in the LED and the diodes. So basically they contain two sets. And there's like the yellow LED, and then there's the blue LED, and you can do a combination. So right now we're only using the cool or daylight side, but we can also use the warm or a combination of both. So let's look at what that looks like in our shot here. So now I'm going to turn this one off. So again, you can see that original key on the camera left is off. And now what I'm going to do is start adding some warmth. So see what happens if we add a little bit of warmth. So now we have a really kind of warm fill, so a little bit of mixed color temperature. The warmth is nice, and we still have that backlight around the penguin's head that really helps to separate him from the background, right? So that we have that warmth. So you can see quickly we can play with color temperature to make one side a lot warmer, and then one side can stay a lot cooler. And similarly, we can add a little bit of blue to this too to reduce that if we want more intensity and have the yellow, right? So that color temperature is really convenient. And what I'm doing is just using, there's two knobs here. So there's a cool and a warm knob, right? And this is the newer LED light, and it's one of the lights that you can take out, you can borrow from the Blue Mountains Public Library under the Creator Space program. And it's also, if you're looking to buy, these kinds of units are about $60 or less, so it's very affordable. The fluorescent light up there is also in that kind of price range. So very affordable lighting. And if you don't want to have a kit like this, you can also use light bulbs. And we're going to have a little bit of some more info on that, where you can create your own dimmers as well for the lights to use. So that can be a really neat way to work with that, right? So that's kind of the idea there. So look at what we've been able to do. So we can go, kind of warm light here, and now let's turn off the key. It used to be our fill, so our key now. And look what happens there. So now we're in a total, just the yellow key / fill, right? It's just the 2 points, right? So now we have, this one's totally off. We're just using a little bit of warm light from this unit here. And then we have our daylight balanced backlight going back there. So that really helps load that kind of image with some information that, hey, it's kind of a bit of a warmer tone. And then that backlight is blue. And that's a very kind of a digital cinematography trick is that mixed color temperatures. We'll see that a lot, especially with, if we're interior, inside, and we want to convey the idea that there's moonlight. So that could be kind of bluer, and then the warm could be inside as if it's regular lights from table lights, lamps, fireplace, whatever you wish. So that kind of warmth and blue is a really interesting combination. right? So that's really neat too, right? So that's kind of the blend of the things here. So let's just recap this. So I'm going to just go back to just a daylight setting, right? So our fill is off, our backlight, we're back to this kind of our original. You can see the big difference there now from where we were, right? So that blue, right? I'll turn that off and bring it in. Big difference, right? When we go from daylight to tungsten. So color temperature is another real fun factor to play with in terms of being able to blend them and make some really interesting moods and apply it to what the story is. So if we want to convey the idea that, you know, maybe it's a dark night, you just put a little bit of warmth, and it's almost like there's a bit of a candlelight or table light, and that backlight is really giving us that sense of maybe a little bit of moonlight, and it makes sense. So that's something I always think about is the actual, in the 3-point lighting, it's not just the technical setup of the lights, that's, you know, kind of the rules. And then the fun part happens. As you saw, we can do different combinations, having just 1, 2, or 3 out of them working, different color, temperature combinations. And then the last thing that, you know, is really fun to experiment with is getting into the motivation. So where is the light coming from? What does it make sense? Like, are we trying to say that's a window, that backlight? Maybe it's a window in the back of the room, bringing in some moonlight. Are we trying to say that, you know, the front here is a bit, you know, kind of this cooler, this area here is kind of like, you know, like a candlelight, and then that's like a window coming from the backlight, right? So that's a really interesting idea, is what does the lighting tell us or help tell us in the story as well? And that's a real important factor to start thinking of, is, you know, what could the different lighting help tell us? So that's our 3-point lighting. So let's go back just to our original setup. So I have like the really bright key light. Okay, and I'm going to turn on the fill light again. So it's going to dim it back up. Okay, and so that's, you know, we have our entire full 3-point lighting on now, right? And again, so we have the key light, fill light, and the backlight in the back separating the subjects, right? So that's our 3-point lighting. So that's great. So I think we have a bit of time now for some Q&A. So let's do that. You guys can, if there's any questions, just feel free to type them, and I can answer them. I think, you know, what's really great is if you look at, you know, what's available, and you don't have to spend a lot of money, and really try to encourage that, is like what is just available. And I'm amazed at what kind of LED light bulbs you can just get at hardware stores, and even places like there's like a China lantern in a paper, very inexpensive. IKEA sells them. I use those. You can put a LED bulb in that, and just, it's like a soft box, right? So that kind of softens things up as well. So there's some really neat ways to do that. So let me just have a look here at questions. Okay. Okay, so I have the first question here. What type of lights are those? The LED you said are $60. Okay, great question. So brand-wise, it's a brand called Neewer, Neewer, and you can get them from a lot of different stores. You can also get them online, like through Amazon and places like that. So that's the Neewer one, and the fluorescent light I'm using that's in that price range as well is from a company called Impact. And again, these are very low cost options. You can find comparable LEDs and fluorescent lights that can cost you hundreds and thousands of dollars. So these are the real good price point type lights that I've been recommending. And we've been trying to offer those in the to take out through the library in terms of what could be available. So if you really enjoy the light, you can always use it. You can always get your own, and it's not totally unaffordable. So we're trying to find affordable solutions. Next question here. I recall that you mentioned all three lights share in their duties. And yes, so they do. That really good question. So the lights, if we go back to like what our lighting looks like, so no light is ever totally independent. So they're going to help each other. So this fill light, goes around and it kind of, sculpts around the image like that. This fill light comes over here, but it's also going to not just go only from this side. It's going to spread a little bit to the left, right? So they're overlapping, and it's really not individual pools, but we've got to think of them as, kind of overlapping. And then that backlight puts the final touch on the back here, but it's also going to punch around the front because it's a pretty strong backlight. So it actually puts a little bit of fill as well. So they're all kind of acting. So the fill puts a little bit of key, the key adds a little bit of fill, and the backlight adds a little bit of both because it will bounce kind of around, right? And that's a great question because a lot of the lights will kind of bounce around each other and work in that manner. So, okay. So if you're using metal instruments and taking a video, how do you reduce reflection? Great question here. So what I want to reiterate here is, so the camera that you're looking through is right here. So this is the camera. This is a real wide fisheye lens, so you can kind of get the whole sense of the room. So this camera right here is right here. Then we have about 45 degrees. We have about 45 degrees where this light is right over here. Okay, and then we have another 45 degrees where that light is there. So in order to have the best results on that kind of lighting scenario, if there's something metallic, the more of an angle it is, the less reflection you can have. And that goes with glasses too. So if your subject's wearing glasses, if the lights are on 45-degree angles, you can imagine they're no longer, shining directly at the subject this way. But if they're going from the sides, we're not getting a lot of reflection. And that goat has like a glass kind of eyeball. And as you notice, it's not really reflecting too much. And if the light was straight on, it would. So those 45-degree angles or more can really help with reducing metal reflections for sure. The other thing I'd like to mention too is that the metal reflection can also be dulled. So you could use things like, there's actually a spray called dulling spray. So if it was really integral, like a kind of a subject, or if it's a product photography, you can spray this dulling spray on shiny objects and it literally makes it dull, and then you can wipe it off after. So that's kind of the excessive thing that's also available. You can use things to like kind of dull. But if you do that, the lighting angles, at least 45, like really from the side, you can go even more. You'll definitely reduce the overall amount of reflection that's happening with kind of side lights and go that direction. Okay, so yeah, definitely, I think that's, oh, I have one more question. Let's have a look. Okay, and yeah, here's the question of that, shooting from above. So that same idea, if you're shooting from above and the metal objects are below you, you can again have lights. So think about it, even if your camera is from above, right, you can have the lights can be on 45-degree angles, right? So it's the same thing. So the floor plan just becomes a side plan if the camera's above. Same idea, you just have to think of it flipping it around in the diagram. And yeah, that's it. Okay. Well, again, thanks everybody for joining us. As I mentioned, my name is Tom Strnad, the lead digital artist. I want to thank everyone for joining us. The great thing is that you can by registering and through Crowdcast here, you can rewatch this. So any of the slides or anything that you want to review or look at some of the lighting techniques. But now I really encourage you to rewatch it. You can then try this out with even fixtures that you have in your home. If you don't have any special video lights, you can have different lights. And I should mention that you could get different wattages of light bulbs. and that can help you. So if you got, you know, a 60 watt and a 40 watt, you're already having ratio differences, right? So that key light is usually like 3 times as bright. So if you got a 100 watt light bulb and a 40 watt light bulb, that's a great key and fill, right? So you can get different wattages of power of lights if you can't control them in other ways. So you can start working on that. So definitely go and experiment, try out the 3-point lighting, and remember that that backlight can be really, useful to create a nice separation for your background. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great rest of the day.